This program was created in part utilizing the Sound Collection Lab located in the History, Social Sciences, Philosophy Department on the campus of the University of Arkansas at Fort Smith. The views expressed herein do not necessarily reflect the views of the Department of History, Social Sciences, Philosophy, or its faculty, or the University of Arkansas at Fort Smith.
I'll see Mr. Interstate.
Hey, this truck like it's getting ready to move here. I couldn't see if it was him or not. See if we can get...
We've talked a little bit about what got you into the books. Tell us a little bit about the writing and the process and working with George.
Yeah, George Klein is just an amazing guy. I call him Frank. He goes, it's George Frank Klein, but he's affectionately known as Frank. He actually was writing a book, and he kind of sent us a transcript of a book, and he said, "Hey, I want to use your first name or and Karen's name, I think, in the book or something like that." Mm-hmm. And I said, "Oh, cool. What kind of book is it?" And he was telling me that it's kind of a crime mystery type of book and so forth. And we started talking, and I said, "Hey, if you need some help, on some details," and then he jumped on that, and next thing you know, I'm writing with him and so forth. But Frank is just a neat guy. He's
what did you learn about writing?
I think what I learned about writing was,
or maybe editing.
43 years, editing nothing.
Yeah,
that's
okay.
you.
Oh,
but writing, that's what I did for a living. And we're writing reports on a daily basis. And when I became a detective, I mean, there's the writing increased, of course, because you're writing out statements and people's, what happened and so forth. And
so law enforcement is not foreign to writing.
Oh, not at all. Not at all.
No.
Yeah. So it might not be the perfect writing style, there's certain, verbiage and stuff like that, but it really taught me how to hear a story and then put it down in writing, so a jury would actually understand what's going on. So, or a prosecutor would have enough information to file, some sort of charge against somebody. So I think, I think I made mention, I kind of started writing down some incidents that occurred throughout my career that kind of got me, tantalized a little bit. And then when George, contacted me, that kind of got me going. So, working with him was fun and so forth. But it was trying. I was working full time, 10, 12 hours a day, and then trying to come home and write and so forth. So I had about 2 books in me.
Right.
Yeah. But George has wrote several other books since then. And he's an excellent writer, and just a really, really good person that I got to know from St. Boniface, going to church.
And so there's a third in the works?
Never say never. Never say never.
And Netflix, if you're watching, this is going to be the next one.
The search an hour closer. People that's probably one of the common statements people tell me about the books that I was involved in is
right.
An hour closer would make a great movie.
It's a good one,
and I think it would. I think it would.
I've read the first one. I'm honestly still. I haven't. It's one of those stacks. The stacks keep growing. But it's in there. It's in the stacks. It's on the plate, and it should be on your plate too. So get one of these books. Where do they get them?
You can get them on Amazon.
Okay.
Or any online bookstore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say about the books?
Oh, no, not at all.
No?
It's good. No, it was fun to write. It's really good books. Again, An Hour Closer, and also Unchained Fortitude, has some characters of people that I worked with and so forth. So, there was one true incident that took place where we conducted a surveillance on one of the largest marijuana cultivation crops in Arkansas. Here locally. Yeah, Chris Jr. actually helped out on that too. So, there's some parts in the book that kind of reflect something like that. But it was very, very close to actually what happened. So I took that from an actual incident.
What do you think of former law enforcement writing books such as Chris Boyd and yourself? And is this a trend? Is this, like Serpico? Is this, there was... is it Bo Detail? You remember him? Yeah.
Or Joseph Wambaugh. You ever heard of him?
No.
He wrote a really good book. He was a retired L.A. Police detective.
Okay.
And he wrote a book called The Onion Field. It was a true story of two officers that were actually on a traffic stop, ended up getting kidnapped.
Okay.
One partner was shot and killed. They took him to an onion field in California outside of L.A. and assassinated one of the officers.
Good Lord.
The other officer was able to get away, and it talked about the trials and tribulations, the survivor's guilt that he went through.
Right.
But, I think the officers have been, there's been plenty of police officers that have been writing books about their career. They make movies, TV shows about cops, so it's always something people watch.
As law enforcement, what do you think about that when somebody comes out with a cop book? And do you go, you roll your eyes, or is it?
No, not really.
Okay.
It's kind of like.
Is it like a little pride?
Well, it's there's so many of them that are out there. There's no doubt. It's just trying to select, like you, when you have a stack of things to do. How much time do you have to buy this book or read this book and so forth. So, but yeah, there's been some very great books that are out there written by law enforcement.
Sure. Sounds good.
All right. Well,
Thank you.
I think we need to turn the tables just a little bit and kind of talk about you.
Uh-oh.
Heck yeah, absolutely.
Here we go.
That's right. So the big thing is, who is Dr. Kevin Jones, I presume? So just a little bit about you. You're a professor here at University of Arkansas at Fort Smith of English. And your department is English, Rhetoric, and Writing and Media Communications.
That's right.
You have a PH.D. from the University of Arkansas that you got in 2011.
Yep.
You had areas of research from American writing, American UK literature and culture, pedagogy, how do you say that? I have a hard time saying that. Pedagogy.
Pedagogy. Yeah,
teaching. Teaching,
yeah.
very good.
Study of teaching, basically, yeah.
These academics are just, they come up with these words just to be able to sound smart.
I didn't come up with it.
But no, anyway.
I'm still working on English.
Just kidding. Kind of go through some, a litany of some of the projects and roles you've been involved in, and then we'll talk a little bit about that. So, gosh, you served as the co-chair of the Charles Portis Symposium. And Charles Portis was the author of True Grit, one of the best written American novels ever.
It's funny.
It is hilarious. The way they speak and talk is just so,
a writ for a rat.
A writ for a rat and a rat for a writ. And what a great moment. Pow! Let's shoot that rat. That writ served. Also, you've done the 1940s radio hour, directed this UAFS musical production, which has a mix of students, musicians, faculty, and local performers. It's kind of a local history media. It's so
well. We did a show here called the 1940s Radio Hour, and then we also do a thing called the Local Color Radio Hour, which are two different things.
Oh,
but
thank you.
So one's a play that I've always been in love with since I was actually in it in high school, and then ever since I've kind of come back to it.
Okay.
It's a familiar tale and takes place at a radio station in 1942, and it's a great musical and has great music, and it was a great way to keep our department here going at UA Fort Smith then, and it was a great lift for the musicians here.
Right.
And yeah, we did have a lot of fun doing that one. But the Local Color Radio Hour started as kind of a historical project with the Fort Smith Museum of History as a fundraiser, really. And we said, well, what else can we do with this? And so it kind of grew from that. But it's been going a long time.
Kind of took it on the road a little bit. Yeah, Karen and I actually went to that one night. It was so cool. It was just hilarious. It was just wholesome. But you can just imagine, the people back in the day, that was their TV. The whole family would sit in front of the radio, and there would be programs such as this.
That's why we do it. It's kind of like the audio and the live audience is right there in your face. And so our reactions are, they're scripted, they're researched. We do, it takes 3 months to put one of those together usually when we do them. That's why we don't just do them every day or every week. And it's a mixture of live performance, it's music, it's comedy skits, it's local history, it's a mixture of commercials, both real and fake, And so I like to call it Prairie Home Companion mixed with Saturday Night Live a little bit, if I may.
I think that's the perfect description, because I'll tell you what, you're rolling.
Thank you.
Stomach. You walk away and your stomach is
and we do it as a podcast too. Yeah.
So, awesome.
Thank you.
You also authored 2 books.
Yep.
Let's talk
far.
about those.
Yeah.
So far.
So I have, there's always something in the works.
There you go.
So I had these 2 books on Fort Smith history, Images of America series, and then the Postcard History series, which were pulled from primarily archives here in Fort Smith that I was lucky enough to go through, such as working with people like Caroline Spear and working with people at the Chamber and delving into the history of this area, and honestly talking with my mother-in-law originally about all the stories in this area. And I looked into Stan Kajawa's postcard collection that he had, and he let me scan some of the originals from his collection. But then that forced me to go into research to back it up, because you can't just say, well, this is what they're saying on this postcard and this is what this picture means or whatever. You've got to delve into it. And so one of those books would take you 9 months, 12 months to write. Mm-hmm. And you're writing a blurb or a little bit, maybe a page and a half under each photo. And people think, that doesn't take you much time. But there's a lot of background in that you have. You can't just say, well, that happened when it didn't.
Absolutely. The time spent and the research for that is amazing, which I'm going to ask you a couple questions about that too.
So those came out 2011 and 2012 and 2013.
And where can they get those books at?
Everywhere. They're Amazon, and even Ace Hardware here in Fort Smith sells them. Sam's Club has sold them before. They're even on eBay, really cheap.
So for our listeners and people watching this podcast, what are the 2 names of the book?
Fort Smith, but it's Images of America. And then the second title is Postcard History Series, Fort Smith. Right. So they're both Fort Smith, but they're out there, and I call them kind of coffee table books or bathroom books while you're sitting there waiting on the dentist or whatever it is. You can flip through them and get a little bit of history and learn a little bit about an area. And Arcadia Publishing does these all over for different villages and cities and histories. And, one of my friends, Tom Wing, he also did one on Van Buren that's very good too. And, I have several for Sebastian County. There are some others from St. Louis. There's one from St. Louis that I have called Then and Now, which is really cool, because you're looking at a corner and you go, oh, what was that like in 1880, whatever, right? Yeah. What is it now? What does it look like? Let's compare those. And there's a lot of history there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Fort Smith is just
a lot of stories.
Rich in history,
very
colorful history and so forth. We'll talk a little bit about that too. But to start off, how did you first become interested in American literature and cultural studies? And what led you to focus so deeply on Western Arkansas history? Kind of a 2-pronged question.
I would say just literature in general. I've always been a reader. As a child, I just read everything I could get my hands on, and always interested in history and biographies. And, I lived 10 minutes growing up from Wilson's Creek National Battlefield. So that was kind of, hey, history's in your backyard, and there's always a story. And family members were also very much into history. And so everybody had a story, and I started jumping into that dig into the story and try to tell it and share it. And these matter. So we need to share them and protect them, conserve them, and share them.
They do matter. You're right. History is so important, because
history is all around us. The local history matters, and why the Western here. When I moved to this area, I already knew a little bit about Fort Smith, a little bit about Arkansas, but really, when you get here, you realize that there is a whole lot more than just True Grit. There's a whole lot more than just the U.S. Marshals, which is a great story. But there's much more. 1817, Bell Point, and a lot of people didn't know about that origin. Mm-hmm. And, what a story there.
Oh,
but
no joke.
Even the explorers before that, and all the native tribes that were in the area here, and before that, Cahokia versus Spiro Mounds, and all of that kind of back history that people don't realize. It's really cool.
People hear about it, but they don't dive in deep like you had. So I mean, that's awesome how you've been able to do that, and also project that information to the public to help them to kind of sift through the at times sordid history of Fort Smith.
Certainly, and many buildings, for example, that are no longer here. The Goldman Hotel is gone. Yeah. And just you look through Garrison that has been devastated with tornadoes, or Garrison Avenue, and its history, not only militarily, But all the parades that have gone up and down. You've been in a few parades, haven't you?
One or two. Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, it's, and I love to read too, but man, the pictures, I mean, of old Fort Smith, and some of these parades and so forth. And I'll be looking and I'll see, somebody on horseback leading the parade, and I wonder, man, I wonder if he was the sheriff at the time, because I've done that. He were my counterparts way back in the day and so forth. So, man,
we talked about this before about the mounted Sebastian County. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah.
Why do we have mounted? Is it search and rescue, or what, are there other reasons? I mean, it's pretty cool to have a mounted force.
Yeah. I think, I've seen pictures at the Greenwood Courthouse of like the 1950s or 1940s, but I'm sure it goes back before then. But that was back in the day where it literally was the sheriff's posse.
Right.
Of volunteer people that would come out and help out, either search and rescue, look for a bad guy, make appearances in parades and so forth. So it's kind of just a law enforcement tradition within the sheriff's offices throughout the U.S. of having mounted patrol units and so forth, and some are still active to this day.
Right.
So that's and I was in the mounted patrol as a side gig for a while, and that was kind of fun. And getting to, we mostly did parades. We did traffic control. I think at the Greenwood Fair, you work in the parking lot and provide security and so forth. And when you're 6 foot up on a horse, you can, or 6 foot, probably 10 feet up on a horse.
Yeah.
You can see a lot and so forth. So the region, here at UA Fort Smith, the classes that you teach, does the region itself help shape the way you teach some of these classes?
Yes.
How so?
Because some students never get out of where they're from. And I think part of our job is to show them that there is a world outside of their hometown, but your hometowns are also worth celebrating and investigating as well.
Right.
And I want them to remember that it's
true.
important to tell your own story. It's important to investigate your own story, but it's also good to see other viewpoints and listen to other viewpoints and explore the world. Hey, I traveled to 38 states before I was 18 because my parents, we were encouraged to travel. We were encouraged to jump in the camper and throw 5 of us and just go. Dad's got 2 weeks, let's go. And we did that every summer.
How cool is that? Yeah.
And, let's go investigate something. Yeah. You want to go to the Grand Canyon? Okay.
Let's go check it out.
Yeah. You want to go to the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum? Let's go. Or, hey, I've never been to that river in Arkansas. Let's go there. So
isn't it amazing how our parents can literally set the mold, or at least
still do
set the foundation, right, of who you
are
and what you're going to become.
I mentioned this to a student the other day. One of the classes I teach here is an intro to speech class, and their first speech is to introduce themselves and a little bit whatever they want to say. And one student brought up the fact that he was here because of, he felt he had a duty to his parents. And he wanted to give something back and kind of work with them to make the world a better place. And I think that's true. And so I replied to my class yesterday that's kind of why when I walk on campus, one of the things in my mind every day, we're standing on the shoulders of giants who brought us wherever we are today. So nobody gets here in law enforcement or education or whatever it might be in your career. You didn't get there by yourself.
Right.
Somebody led you there or helped you, or, maybe you were going through the door and then they threw you through the window. You never really know where that path's going to take you. I didn't, certainly, just like you didn't know you would be sheriff or want to be sheriff. I never thought I would be a PH.D. I never thought in my dreams that I would be a professor at a university, but here I am. And it's because of people in my life who helped open the door and, pushed me. And, I still have great people in my life who say, yeah, why not? Try that.
Yeah.
So family support's important.
It would be an interesting exercise of someday sitting down, writing down a list of names of people that helped push you through the door.
Not enough paper. The list was so long.
Wouldn't it be interesting? Then to be able to go back with, if some of them are still alive and say,
I think of them every day.
Here's a little tidbit. Let me tell you what you did for me. And they probably don't even know what they actually did. So seriously, it's. That's an amazing point you bring up. So Fort Smith has had a kind of a layered past, I guess, you know.
Oh, sure.
And when people think that they know the history of Fort Smith, they sit in their own mind. But what do you think they usually get wrong or they oversimplify when it comes to the history of Fort Smith?
That it's only True Grit, or it's only Judge Parker, or Judge Parker was a certain type of individual, for example. There's much more than, again, just we love Fort Smith for what it does have, but there are so many other stories that, people didn't realize. We had a Jewish synagogue, or we had this over here that was called Electric Park that no longer exists, or wow, that's the way the rodeo started. Those things are in my book, and people go, oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah. Well, yeah. Or that we used to have 2, 3 radio stations, and we used to have 2 or 3 television stations, and now they're gone to Johnson or wherever. But
we're not testy about that.
No, not bitter at all. Darren Bob. But no, we're newspapers, right?
Oh yeah.
We used to have 2 a day.
2? Yep.
Morning and afternoon editions, right?
We used to have milk delivered, AC milk. Remember that?
Right. Yeah. So
things change. Sometimes for the good, right? Sometimes maybe not.
Right.
So much for the good.
So as a building leaves, there are stories behind it. So I drove by yesterday, Bell Point School, and I saw it closed. And it made me think, all the students who went through that building, and what's going to happen to that building now? Is it going to become something like Bell Grove School? It's going to become apartments in the future? I don't know. Or is it going to be demolished? Or we see the rise and fall of hospitals in the area too, and then all the history of Sparks or whatever. Pick one of the hospitals in the area that we've seen change over time, and or how the VA has influenced this area. Those are stories that people are affected by.
Kind of goes into my next
Talianos.
question, I guess.
There's another one. Talianos, and what Kevin Hickey's doing with it now with Magnolia Social House, and now there's another chapter maybe for that little house that had an Italian restaurant for 55 years, with the Caldereras and the Cadellis, and now it's something else. Right. So there's a new story to tell.
The hundreds of thousands of stories that let's say that building could tell individually, people who would go there on their anniversaries, birthdays, or just go out to eat, the interactions, they had with the Caldereras that were, amazing hosts and so forth. And,
absolutely.
And now it's transitioning. So kind of into my next question, your book, Fort Smith, presents kind of a pictorial history of Fort Smith through postcards.
Sure.
So what originally drew you to the postcards as a serious historical search or source? I mean, and tell me about the research that you must
my
have
mother
gone
actually had a collection of postcards from her grandmother, and I have them now. But every postcard was interesting because of not only the artwork on the front, but the stories on the back. It could be from the postmark or a little note. But then getting into the research, I try to figure out, well, who is this and what's the story behind the story, or like the Paul Harvey kind of thing, what's within it. But we're looking into, for example, I just happened into Stan Kajawa. He was downtown, and he wrote some books already about Fort Smith and his postcard collection of Fort Smith. And but he just had the images. He didn't really have a lot of information about them. So I was intrigued about, well, okay, where did that come from? Is it interesting that it's printed somewhere, right? Chicago, or this is Kansas City, or now we look at something and we go, it's made in China. Look at that. Is there a story behind that label that says made in China or whatever? So I looked into talking to Stan a little bit about that, and he allowed me to scan through some. And then I found other images that were unpublished and other postcards, and started delving into that. And 9 months later, I had a book.
Wow.
And
I mean, I would imagine you went to various libraries. And
the genealogical collection in Fort Smith, at our wonderful library system here. And then, of course, working with Caroline Spear and Lisa Gramlich at Fort Smith Museum of History, and people at the Chamber of Commerce then, who had some images that were unpublished, and then now they're part of a collection at Fort Smith Museum of History, and then now what we have with the Pebley Center here at the University of Arkansas, Fort Smith. So history is all around us. We just need to look into it and dig into it because there's always something else out there.
Just kind of giving a shout out to, let's say, the Fort Smith Museum of History. I mean, if you've never been there, oh my goodness gracious, go.
Right.
Even the Fort Smith Public Library, we're so into this instantaneous, research on our phone, but you know what? It's an experience to get to go to the library or go to the museum and check it out.
It was magic. Remember bookmobiles?
Oh gosh, yeah. Oh man, that was like the anticipation for that. They start talking about it. That's exactly right.
Book fairs when you were a kid,
and it's kind of sad. I think
libraries are great.
They are, and I just hope that parents would understand that and see that and it's almost like a not a social outing, but it's like a human experiment. Take your children there and see how they react to that. It's like a whole
libraries are so much more than books.
Right.
They have events, they have movies, they have how-tos, they have demonstrations. There's always something going on at your local library, so check it out.
Absolutely. And that Fort Smith Museum. That is so cool, as well as the Marshall, all the museums that we
great
have
museums.
Here. Oh, we do. And, people sometimes ask, what's there to do? Well, get off the couch.
Yeah, that would help.
They're out there. Get out there.
Chaffee has a great historical museum, too. Whole historical
section
out there, too.
So you also created a podcast, Tales of the True Grit.
Trail.
Excuse me. Thank you very much. So what inspired you to move from academic into audio storytelling? How did that
happen? When I was a kid, one of our favorite things to do, we would take cassette tapes and we would record stuff off the radio and then add our own little commentary over it. Or we would look at the television and turn the sound down and kind of make up things that the commentator was saying. And we would do that, or we'd make fake commercials because we were fans of satire like SNL or whatever it may have been at the time, Benny Hill or whatever, the Marx Brothers. And I don't know, I've always been a goofy kid. And so we were always making something with a radio type feel to it. But again, growing up listening to something like and reading the books of Prairie Home Companion, Garrison Keillor, and the influence of live radio, and that kind of pushed me into some areas, and I think podcast is natural. That's a medium that people are getting into and actually paying attention to. The only problem is you don't make a whole lot of money with it, but we don't do it for the money. We do it because it's fun, and so Tales of the True Grit Trail came from an organization that was trying to support business and local history and trying to put a spotlight on local communities along that Fort Smith to Tallahena and all the way over to Russellville and Yale County and Dardanelle and all that to put a spotlight on it because there's a lot of history along that trail. And so what we do in our podcast, we've tried to take the fictional character of Maddie Ross, who's kind of the narrator of the whole thing, and she's the thread, but we take these real stories and some fictional characters at times and interweave them into telling new stories, or maybe you didn't know about this along the trail. That's been some of it. And then we've had some that also are dramatizations. Sue Robinson has written quite a few of those. She's done really great with that. And they highlight, for example, the gypsy pharmacist. Or we may have had one on, George Maladin's daughter, Annie, who gets killed.
That nobody would ever even know about unless she
the Hangman's Daughter was the episode. Or your episode about Wiley Cox.
Right.
The throat cutter.
Yeah.
Right. But we have all these stories that maybe somebody read in a newspaper, but we're like, I wonder what that's about. Yes. We just did one on McAllister that I think some people are going to be interested in. Or Cody Faber's coming to talk about a little bit about the history of Fort Smith and a guy named Ike Rogers, who was kind of not better than Bass Reeves, but in some cases he was different from Bass Reeves. He was another black marshal in this area, and he helped with the capture of Cherokee Bill. And people don't realize, there's a huge photo of Ike next to Bill. He's kind of the second person next to Bill in the famous photograph that's at the Fort Smith National Historic Site. But we don't know the stories of those people that are numbered in that photo, the Tillmans and, maybe the guardsmen and that sort of thing. They get the attention, but what about the Crittenden brothers? We don't know a whole lot about them. Where's their story? So that's kind of what Tales of the True Grit Trail
I'm so glad
does.
you're doing that because, as much, attention and accolades we need to give to Bass Reeves, there are hundreds of other marshals, you're right, that came before him, came after him, that set the foundation, set the road, to what true justice is, the sacrifices they made, the family, just leaving your family for weeks at a time, to go track down some, fugitive you had a warrant for, or even a writ to serve,
right?
Just trying to deal with that. And so, there's a lot of rich law enforcement history here in the Western District of Arkansas.
The nitty gritty of you get $2, right?
Yeah.
And then you have to pay your posse, you have to pay your cook, got to feed your horse.
Yeah, and if you get in a gunfight with the bad guy, you have to pay for the funeral.
That's right. It's on you.
That's a good incentive to de-escalate, maybe. Or at least be smart enough to be able to capture him.
Bass Reeves, Ike Rogers, those two guys brought in, I think, more fugitives than many other people.
Yep.
So but that's coming soon on that Tales of the True Grit Trail.
Yep. So you kind of have become a local expert in Western Arkansas history. You kind of, or
well, I have a lot of friends.
Like that.
I have a lot of friends who are historians. I'm a hobbyist historian, and in some of my training, yes, history, but I've always loved history.
Right.
And so, my degrees are in cultural studies and literature, and I guess, and I've taught history at different locations, but it's always been something. Absolutely.
Cool. So how has your relationship with the community changed as your work has become more public? Because, just as this podcast right here, the amount of work that Kevin Jones does behind the scenes to bring these stories out, whether it's, your podcast or your audio podcast or this or your books.
Right.
That's a sacrifice in itself that you and your family give.
Sure.
To push this information out to people who don't even know that they need to hear it,
Well, that's true. And for example, again, when we do local color radio hour, the preparation is a month to 3 months, just writing it, organizing it, trying to figure out where we're going to do it, how are we going to do it, who does what, who's going to run the sound, what do we have to do to make that interesting and engaging and historically accurate if we're doing something historical. Same with Tales of the True Grit Trail. We have constantly ideas coming over from different people. Again, it could be from Marcus Woodward or John Hagan or Sue Robinson or Jonathan Lance or Tom Shea, who organized True Grit Trail. Everybody has an idea, or Michael Cathy over in Oklahoma. They all have these different ideas, and maybe they'll send me an idea for a script, or they write the scripts themselves, as in the case of Sue Robinson or my wife, Maggie Jones. It's not just me doing it. And so it takes a team of people, like this does. It takes a team of people asking questions, looking for answers, and supporting them with real evidence. Cool. And just as you would with the cases that you've talked about with law enforcement.
You've given me accolades about my public service and so forth, but man, it goes right back to you as well, though. The sacrifice that that you do for the public in our community to understand the history, the getting up every single morning.
Just make people laugh sometimes. That's okay.
Hey, that's okay, but also getting up every single morning, and reaching these college students. Molding their mind or getting into them to expand what they're normally doing. I've always said this, and you can't have anything without educators.
True.
You can't do anything without educators. And so thank you for doing that. That's so important. And thank you for all the things that you've done in the past and some of the things that you're probably in the way back here that you're kind of thinking about doing in the future, that if our audience can kind of just keep up with what's going on with you, they can get some really, really good entertainment information, historical information, and so forth. So stick with Kevin because he's got a lot more to do. You also hosted a symposium, with Charles Portis, the author of True Grit. So what stands out most to you from that experience?
Well, I was lucky enough to have great support with that. This is one of the best departments, I think, because our English department and our university overall is focused on bringing something to the people. And so we were fortunate enough to discuss with the Portis family. We had Jonathan Portis here actually on campus. We had Jay Jennings, who had edited the most recent edition of Charles Portis's books. He was here on this campus. And so the great support from the department at the time was not only financial resources, but also time and energy spent in making this symposium what it could be, which was a celebration, but also an investigation of Charles Portis's books. And kind of like we called it the works and influence of Charles Portis. So it was an investigation not only of his life, but also what he wrote and why he wrote it and why we're still reading it. And why it's still so funny. So many of his books, you just kind of step back and you go, why is he? Wow, that character's crazy. I know people like that because the dialogue's real. And then his short stories are even better. His journalism is really powerful. Not only did he write great novels, but he writes about civil rights in Little Rock, and he writes about traveling in motels and breaking down and having to rebuild his trucks and all this stuff on the road in his books or in his short stories or in his journalism. And he's quite a writer. And so we wanted to investigate that and celebrate it. And again, people in my department were just very supportive of that. And it does take a village. It took the whole entire department. So I didn't do it by myself. And then from that, we published the findings of the conference proceedings in the Arkansas Journal, which recently won an award for an affiliate journal for National Council of Teachers of English, national award for that. So good job. Sarah Winterberg and some other people helped work with that, and so very helpful.
Cool, good deal. You've also been involved here in researching local criminal justice history,
right?
With Sebastian County.
Well, we started back with that conversation. You probably thought, "Who are these crazy people coming to my office?" But back when you were sheriff, we were notified that there were historic documents in Sebastian County that were falling apart and needed to be taken care of. And I think part of it, if I may, wasn't it you had an interest in one of the particular cases, and you said, I want to know more about this. What else can you find in there? And that encouraged us to dig further. And now we have digitized, since 2014, I think it is, we have digitized, thousands of pages, thousands of documents. We went back to the criminal cases to 1850. There were some cases all the way up through 1920 that we're in. I think we're up to 1923.
Wow.
That we've digitized and will make available on a website very soon with Sebastian County. We're still in the works with that, and we've had great support from the county and great support from UA Fort Smith. We've had students, we've had volunteers, we've had paid workers working on this too, and just fantastic people from county judges to the county clerk's office to the people who do this every day. And we just really appreciate the support. And it is a cooperative effort that kind of started, honestly, with also, I just went blank, not Justin.
With the county judge?
No, with Wang.
Tom Wang? What?
J.A.
It'll come back.
It's gone. Justin.
Just as you're thinking about that, trying to
hang on, I'll get there. Anyway, I'll come back to it. But
very good.
But yeah, I can do that. I can edit that later.
Okay. So, as in any project like that, especially historical research, you talked about paying students to come out.
Yeah.
I would assume you probably got some sort of grant. So if there's any person that is listening to our podcast, I guess, or is extremely interested in our local history and would like to assist in that, how can they financially assist in, writing a check to the UAFS Fort Smith Foundation to help pay?
That's part of it. Not only from UA Fort Smith, but also with the foundation and whatnot. But of course, my work with Fort Smith Museum of History as an entity, we've had local contributors to Local Color Radio Hour. It's just been very supportive from businesses who wanted us to do a business ad for them, and they gave our wonderful support. Such as Jaegers, they've always been a wonderful supporter here. And then we've had individuals such as Jennifer Kelly, who's also helped a ton with what we're doing right here with the Sound Collection Lab, and so many other people at UA Fort Smith, and they're devoting their time, treasure, and talent in many ways. And so we try to do that because we've always had an idea of a sense of place or a sense of community, and that's part of, I guess that might be a root of what I do, is try to showcase the community and share the community and say, we're all in this together. Mm-hmm. So let's tell the story and enjoy it while we're doing it.
I, for one, am glad there are people like you that do that. So thank you. So finally.
Yes, sir.
If you could pick maybe one or two, what stories from Western Arkansas history do you think still haven't been told but should be? Tough one.
Just one?
Or a favorite?
Tom Wing is actually working on one that I think needs to be out there more. Okay. The John Drennan story. A lot of people don't realize the impact of John Drennan or the influence of this person as an Indian agent in this area. Okay. And Tom's kind of the expert on that, so I'm going to let him take that.
And we didn't get Tom on the podcast.
I think so. Tom's always a good guest, and he's a brilliant historian and a fine gentleman. That's the great thing too. I have a lot of smart friends, and a lot of good people that I know, and smart friends and musicians and historians, and life's interesting. So,
well, you're a good man, and I appreciate what you do.
Well, thank you
so much. Absolutely. All right, so
blessed to know you.
Hey, so that will be it for this episode. So again, we want to thank the University of Arkansas at Fort Smith, the Sound Collection Lab, for assisting us in our endeavor here on the Bill Hollenbeck Behind the Badge podcast, and everything that the University of Arkansas at Fort Smith does. They are a jewel here within our. I like that. They're a jewel within our
Say
Fort
that again.
Smith and Western
You said
Arkansas.
behind the badge.
I did. Absolutely. That would be beyond the badge. Thank you so much.
Try that again.
Hey, I'm trying to give University of Arkansas some kudos here. So they do an amazing job. So
they do.
Again, thank y'all so much for supporting our podcast and so forth. So until next week, we'll catch you later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Like you're going to make a right-hand turn going south. Catch up here real quick. He's not moving really quick. We're getting ready to take eastbound turn on Flaxton. We are now eastbound on Flaxton. I'm trying to get a parking truck. I'm outside the PD waiting on him to come out now, Derek. But up to Holland. Let's go up to Holland here pretty soon. Okay, the mark unit's trying to catch up with you guys. I'm out on traffic.
Stand by, might need you to cut off for a second.
Go ahead with it.
Stand by, I'm still getting information. Come back to the